Wild Earth and welcome to Penguin Beach. We are of course down here at the Stony Point African Penguin and Seabird Colony in the beautiful coastal village of Betty's Bay in the Western Cape of South Africa. My name is Byron and I'm going to be your naturalist for the day. I'm joined behind the lens by Jason and we are so excited to be here with you today. Let's have a look and see what the African penguins are up to down here at the left wing. We are live, of course, and would love to interact with you. You can send us your comments and questions over a number of platforms. You can head over to Twitter and use the hashtag @WildEarth and send your comments and questions there. You can also head over to the WildEarth website, register, and post your comments and questions under the live feed. And if you are under the age of 18, please pop us an email at kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. Don't put an at before kids, just kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. We would love to hear from you. It is another beautiful day down here at the Penguin Colony. We really have been treated with fabulous weather over the past 4 days, even though it is heading into the winter period. I was actually having a chat not so long ago and we've all decided that winter is a better time to film down here at Stony Point, even though there can be accompanying rain. But we are afforded protection from the wind chill that we experience over summer with those very, very hard gale force southeast winds. Let's head over to the official weather report and see what we can expect down here at Stony Point today. How beautiful the mountain ranges are today. We're looking straight at the Olifantsberg, which means Elephant Mountain. Quite difficult to actually see the outline of an elephant there, but I assure you that it is meant to look like an elephant. It's just covered in shadow and very, very difficult to make out, but we're so fortunate to have such a beautiful backdrop to the penguin colony. The Kugelberg Mountains are extremely beautiful and world-renowned for their beauty as well as for their floral diversity. Maya, welcome to the show. And Maya, you are quite right. The weather is looking great. It's so nice to have a sunny winter's day. And I do prefer the northwest winds, not only because it grooms the water and makes the waves offshore and good for surfing for myself, but the ocean just looks so pleasant when it has a beautiful offshore breeze on it. And there's not too much swell around today. I believe that the waves are actually smaller today than they were yesterday. The moon phase is starting to change. I saw the moon yesterday evening and we have a waxing gibbous moon. So the moon is heading towards full moon and I'm sure we are going to start experiencing some more drastic tidal movements over the next week. And maybe all the kelp that has accumulated on the beach will be washed away and the beach we'll be able to see the beach sand again. I'm really hopeful that we will bump into Mark and Cleopatra today and the Crazy Nine.
If you are a Wild Earth explorer, we have exciting news for you.
The winner of this month's prize giveaway will win a hamper full of Explorer merchandise.
Like this fantastic t-shirt that comes in plenty of great colors, a very useful tote bag, or even a cap.
For those in the southern hemisphere that's heading into winter, a sweatshirt to keep you warm.
Head over to the Wild Earth Explorers page. Sign up to be a Wild Earth Explorer and you could win all of these goodies.
WildEarth, it's in your nature.
Fukumuri. Oh, here's an impressive looking male leopard. Look at that neck on him. He just looks ready for a fight.
This is only the third time that we are seeing him that is known as the Fukumuri male, and he certainly has a lot of character and atmosphere.
This is gorgeous. Fukumuri having a drink at one of the little seasonal pans.
Isn't he absolutely gorgeous? Compact, powerful, focused. I love it.
And as the name suggests, that structure holds fast onto the rocky substrate, and only big swells and very, very strong winds can uproot that kelp. I say uproot, but kelp plants or the sea bamboo actually do not have roots. That holdfast does have a root-like structure. However, you can see that there are a number of kelp plants draped over the rocks. The rocks have been dressed by the oceans of the Cape of Storms. Benny, I hope I got your name right. My apologies if I haven't. It might have been Penny. But we're quite fortunate down here in the Western Cape to not experience too many natural disasters. Our winters come with big storms. About every 7 days we experience quite a major cold front accompanied by gale force northwest winds and heavy rainfall at times. But our greatest natural disaster around the Western Cape would have to be fire. And the vegetation that covers the mountain ranges in this region have a lot of oils in the leaves and are actually dependent on fire for its continued survival and does need to burn. And over the summer period, when it is very, very dry and windy, we can experience some quite intense wildfires. It's listed as a natural disaster, of course, but for Fynbos, it would actually be a disaster if fire never happened. But it is important to note that a fire cycle needs to be maintained. Fire can't burn in the same place every single year, and it cannot be excluded from the same place for too long either. So fire would definitely be our greatest natural disaster down here. Not so long ago, my brother and his fiance had to evacuate their house because of a wildfire just down the road in Kleinmond. We don't get lightning and thunderstorms like the team up in the Lowveld get. We experience lightning and thunder only about 5 times a year here in the Western Cape, and it might sound strange, but I always enjoy a lightning and thunderstorm because we're not exposed to it too often. Thank you for that interesting question. And we have 2 lovebirds. As I say that they're in love, they move apart from one another. But this is great behavior to observe. These individuals are in the early stages of courtship. And maybe this is a new pair that is establishing a pair bond.
All WildEarth explorers have a chance to join our naturalists in a monthly Fireside Chat. This is a great way to learn more about our guides, animal characters, and wildlife locations. We would love to hear from you as to the topics that interest you the most. Email us your ideas or tweet using the hashtag WildEarth, and we will be sure to take them into account when planning our evenings around the fire in the future. WildEarth Explorers. It's in your name.
Birds often try to pick up nesting material as an indication to a potential partner that they are ready to mate. Hello, Virginia. That's a very interesting question. Virginia would like to know how penguins mark their territory. So penguins are mainly territorial within the breeding season when they are occupying a nest, and they don't necessarily mark that area with feces or anything like that. They will actually guard it, and they will guard that area with their presence. If they have eggs at a nest or if they have chicks, there will always at least be one adult in attendance until the chick is at least 30 days old. But they will guard that nesting burrow with aggression towards conspecifics as well as any other species such as kelp gull that might try come in there. And outside of the breeding season, they are more than happy to hang out together as long as they do not encroach on one another's space. And they will defend a small bubble around themselves and make sure that individuals that are in close proximity remain out of pecking distance. So very, very interesting behavior that they display. And we're watching some interesting behavior unfold in front of us. There seems to be 3 penguins in the mix here, and 2 of the individuals earlier got quite close and started to make contact with one another. Hello, Arctic Circle, and welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for joining Jason and myself down here today. That's a fantastic question. Arctic Circle would like to know if the penguins will ever go out and re-establish some of the former colonies. So I wouldn't say that it is impossible for them to do that. Penguins will move to other colonies if they can find a greater abundance of food in that region. Of course, the majority of the nesting habitat has been destroyed on some of the outer islands, but having said that, a lot of those colonies still exist today. What happens a lot of the time, there has been seals that have taken over some of the colonies and actually forced the penguins out. So if seals have colonized those areas, very, very tricky for penguins to recolonize it. But what happens with juvenile penguins will often leave their natal colony and travel up and down the coast, and then they return to their natal colony the majority of the time. But if they find an area where there is a greater food source, they can also settle in that region. So it is plausible, definitely. And these 2 individuals are starting to make a move. It's looking quite promising. The male is just trying to tap the female with his flippers, which is what they actually do during copulation. So when penguins copulate, the male that is on top will gently tap the female with his flippers. The female still giving him the cold shoulder at the moment. You go, girl. Got to make this individual work. This male is showing this behavior again. Actually started to alloprene the other penguins' legs and feet.
Watch out for southern ground hornbills. If you see one, then a curse could befall you. Seeing a hyena could bring out the witches, and spotting a snake track could give you a rash. On Friday the 13th of May, WildEarth will be setting off on a special Unlucky Safari, where we search for things that bring bad luck. Are these just mythical superstitions, or could they be true? Join us to find out.
Look at that, there's a tiny leopard cub. Karula has given birth overnight. Look at the little guy who just came around the corner. That is incredible, that's probably his first solo kill.
Oh, that is wonderful. Oh, and have a look, here comes Osana with the monitor lizard.
So Osana, of course, at the same time decided to go climbing up the tree. He's just nearly fallen out of it again.
Look at that, he's running away. The buffalo is chasing Osana at the moment.
There's very interesting behavior being displayed, and if we keep watching these individuals very closely, the two that are busy courting each other, you'll notice that they keep their bills facing down and away from each other to show that they are not threatening the individual at all in any other way. You'll notice if the other individuals come close, the potential breeding pair will point their bills towards them to show that they are unhappy with that situation. Look at this individual that has picked up a piece of sea bamboo. It looked like a frond, and just a little bit earlier we were discussing how birds like to pick up bits of nesting material, which will indicate to their partner that they are looking to mate, or potential partner that they might be looking to mate. It's a very interesting time of year at Stony Point. Of course, we are in the peak breeding season. And just look at the difference in behavior as that individual walked in front of the pair. The bill was pointed directly at that individual to show that they were not happy. Billy, thank you for your question. That is an excellent question. Billy would like to know what will come and predate on the penguins. So, Billy, historically, African penguins never occurred on the mainland like we are observing them today down here at Stony Point. They only colonized this area in 1982. And as a result, they have gained a number of new predators, especially on the terrestrial side. So down here at Stony Point, the Cape mountain leopard has been recorded predating on the African penguins. There's actually a little pathway just behind where we are, known as Leopard Path. That gives a good indication where the leopard has been seen moving up and down this area. Caracal, also known as lynx, will also predate on African penguins. This has been recorded quite well in the Boulders penguin colony, and my wife was actually involved in recording those instances of predation. On land, you get an animal called a small grey mongoose that really loves eggs and baby birds, so they will also come and predate on them. Historically, mole snakes were recorded predating on the African penguins on Robben Island. So it is believed that mole snakes have always predated on African penguins and were originally a predator of this bird species. Of course, now more African penguins are exposed to mole snakes because they have colonized the mainland. And then in the ocean, there are a wide variety of predators, the main predators being the great white shark, the orcas, killer whales, as well as the Cape fur seal. And we actually observed a Cape fur seal predate on an African penguin quite a while ago, live on the Penguin Beach show. Something that you do not see very, very often. This pair are being extremely cute being very submissive towards one another. And they were pecking ever so slightly at the shelly, rocky substrate below them.
Find a way into the kill to get their fill in there as well. But they're also going to be told off. See, lions are not great at sharing their food. Okay, guys. Let me just taking frustration out on the other lion, but you see, it was interesting.
In the woodlands of Juma lives a lion pride with a taste for buffalo.
Look, 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 this is insane. Now, this is what I was saying about lions and buffalo. It's absolute pandemonium.
WildEarth have been privileged to follow the Nkuhuma pride for many years. One of the most loved cats in the pride is Amber Eyes. She was not successful in rearing her first 2 litter of cubs and was seen as an aunt to the other youngsters. Then eventually, towards the end of August 2019, we found her with 4 tiny cubs of her own.
Very relaxing and interesting to watch these 2 African penguins. Hello, Sharon. That's an interesting question regarding the tidal movements, and Sharon would like to know if penguins have the ability to tell if the tides are high or low. So in my observations of penguins, I don't think that the tide plays too much of a factor with regards to their lives, other than moving them higher up onto the shoreline or lower down onto the shoreline. Higher up, of course, during a high tide, and lower on the shoreline when it is a low tide. Penguins gather to hunt generally in the morning, and they'll go out regardless of what the tide is doing at the time. So I think that the way that they determine the tides is simply just by observing the water movements. I don't think that while they are out in the ocean, they will have a good idea of what the tide is doing. I could be wrong, of course, but that is what I surmise, and thank you very much for that question. This pair have now decided to sit down, or not actually sit, lie down in a prone position and relax and take in the nice rays of the winter sun. Hello, Darkmane lover. Welcome back. It's always fantastic to have you on Penguin Beach. And I'm happy that you've asked this question, because we were observing an injured juvenile African penguin not so long ago. It was not on the show. It was just prior to the show. And the other penguins that were surrounding this juvenile continuously tried to peck at it, and weren't too worried that it was injured. So I don't think that they really tell if individuals are feeling unwell or sick or injured. Their behavior was exactly the same. There was no changes in their behavior whatsoever. Even though that penguin was limping and couldn't move very fast, the adults continually pecked at that individual. That individual was actually collected by the conservation staff down here and taken off to Sandcob for rehabilitation. But the adults definitely were not worried about the injury that it sustained. Maybe they can tell, and maybe they just don't care. But it appeared like they weren't able to determine that that individual was feeling unwell. This rock is a favored area for the African penguins to lie up when they are not occupying nests or out at sea. You can see the accumulation of guano indicating that it is very regularly used by these birds. I've noticed today that the orientation of these birds is not all the same. The past couple of days, the penguins were all facing in the same direction with their backs to the wind. There are a number of penguins down here that are facing in opposite directions at the moment.
My name is Tessa. I studied animals and insects, and I specialized in African vertebrate biodiversity. But first and foremost, I am a naturalist here at WildEarth. What inspired me to become a naturalist was a combination of a childhood love and passion for wildlife from our family holidays. It just became this amazing passion, and it ignited this fire that just would not go away. To me, the skills that a naturalist should have would be that passion, making sure that you know why you've got that passion and keeping it going no matter what. The determination to never give up, because it's not the easiest place to be, but I can tell you in my experience it's the best place to be with the biggest differences that you can make. If I could be any animal, I think I would be a leopard. To me, they're the perfect combination of elegance and power and determination and independence, and yet just so beautiful.
You'll notice that the juvenile's always behind them. That is behavior that remains consistent. The juvenile penguins always remain on the periphery of the adults. I can just hear the lovely whistling call of a Cape wagtail that appears to be somewhere close to us. Hello, Seanak, and I must thank you for helping me remember the name of those islands, subantarctic islands. Thank you very, very much, and that is an excellent question. So penguins generally feed offshore, so they feed normally around 4 kilometers offshore, but they can travel a lot further out if need be. Now, with the overexploitation of fish stocks, most penguins actually have to travel further than 11 kilometers before they are able to find sufficient fish stocks to sustain themselves. And of course, offshore, the tidal movement doesn't have too much impact on the bait fish, but what does have an impact is the presence of other predators. So if there are large game fish around, or predatory fish such as yellowtail, as they are referred to here, they will often attack bait fish from below and push them towards the surface of the water, which means that if penguins locate that school, they won't have to dive as deep. And you can tell that bait fish are being pushed very close to the surface, normally by the presence of diving birds, such as the various tern species that are found in this region. And terns are not able to dive very deep, so they're very shallow divers, and that will give us an indication that bait fish are often very close to the surface. If there are no predatory fish around, and there are birds around, and the fish will generally stay a little bit deeper, and that would result in the penguins having to dive deeper in order to find their prey. While leaving for the foraging grounds and returning, the tide can make it just a little bit more difficult to navigate the region. So on low tide, penguins will have to head out through the kelp, which can be quite difficult to navigate, and then on high tide, penguins would have to tongue-tied. I don't even know what I was going to say there. Penguins would have to deal with the waves crashing on the very, very shallow shores. It's quite interesting that the Cape Cormorants really help the African penguins when they are in attendance at a school of fish. It allows the penguins to dive for longer and feed for longer, because if the penguins lose the fish, the Cape Cormorants are able to keep up with them, because when the cormorants surface, they fly and remain with the bait fish. Whereas if the penguins were alone, the penguins would lose them if they spent too much time underwater. I have been scanning for Mark and Cleopatra, and I haven't managed to pick them up amongst the kelp beds. Well, the kelp that is stranded on the beach. Very, very difficult because their coloration blends in so perfectly with the stranded kelp. I know that they are definitely around. Oh, Jason has found the Cape Wagtail. So we were listening to this whistle. I hope that everyone heard it at home when I mentioned it, but there appears to be 2 Cape Wagtails enjoying themselves along the shoreline. And if we look closely, you'll see that there is some movement. There are little crustaceans at the moment jumping around amongst the kelp. You've got to look quite closely. And those little sand fleas is what the Cape Wagtails are after. You can see how this bird got its name, and aptly named, of course. Often bobs its tail up and down, typical of all wagtail species.
My favorite thing about WildEarth are the animals and the interaction and the ability to wait and watch and not rush off. You get to watch their behavior and learn about the individuals. I would like to see the hyenas at the hyena den, and I have. They're there. Look at that. If I could be any animal, I would be a cheetah. I would love to run fast.
Our Western Cape coastline is graced with the Cape fur seal. This playful species is curious and entertaining. At Hout Bay Seal Rescue Center, seals in need are rescued, fed and nursed back to health by our well-trained team of dedicated staff and volunteers. This wonderful legacy of the center is continued as these protected creatures are rehabilitated and released back into the wild.
Just look at the amount of sea bamboo that is stranded on the beach. Some Hotlip's gulls also enjoying themselves, feasting on sand fleas and any other invertebrates that are attracted to the seaweed. You'll notice that it's a very efficient or energy efficient way of foraging when there is kelp around. The food is just present for them. They don't have to go and search for it. They just need to find kelp and they'll be able to move around that area and have easy access to many tasty little morsels. Must be nice to have your food in such close proximity. I'm sure that the Hotlip's gulls often make the penguins quite jealous. Penguins really have to mission to find their food. The Hotlip's gulls are very, very lucky, and of course this is why the Hotlip's gulls distribution coincides with the Benguela upwelling system, where there is a lot of kelp, because of the availability of food it provides. We've also got a pair of hardy-dar ibis. I find that the hardy-dar ibis are extremely beautiful. You'll see as the sunlight hits their feathers at different angles, we should notice some beautiful feather iridescence, which is very characteristic of all species of ibis. And although the hardy-dot ibis have a long bill designed for probing, they are also attracted to areas where kelp has accumulated to find prey right on the surface, instead of having to push their bills down into the substrate. So the kelp really underpins the functioning of the ecosystem in this region. Look closely at the wings of the hardy-dot ibis and let's see if we can spot some feather iridescence. Hello, Mike, and welcome to the show, and thank you so much for that question. Mike would like to know if Cape Cormorants alarm call, and Mike, I can't actually say that I've ever heard a Cape Cormorant make a sound other than like a grunting pig. Most cormorant species don't have the best vocalizations and sound quite pig-like. I have, of course, observed conspecifics and other species of cormorant get close to them, and instead of alarm calling, they generally lunge towards an intruder with their bill instead of alarm calling. So those are the observations that I have made. And cormorants do have sharp bills with a little hook on the end that can inflict some nasty damage. And there is the cormorant colony right on the point at Stony Point, a very beautiful part of this area, and home to not only the Cape cormorant, but also 3 other cormorant species as well: the white-breasted cormorant, the bank cormorant, and the crowned cormorant.
If you are a WildEarth explorer, we have exciting news for you.
The winner of this month's prize giveaway will win a hamper full of Explorer merchandise.
Like this fantastic t-shirt that comes in plenty of great colors, a very useful tote bag, or even a cap.
For those in the southern hemisphere that's heading into winter, a sweatshirt to keep you warm.
Head over to the WildEarth Explorers page. Sign up to be a WildEarth Explorer and you could win all of these goodies.
WildEarth, it's in your nature.
I'm not going to come too close because I know you got your babies. And hello, you old friend. Isn't she spectacular?
Oh, look, it's just too special. She's such a fantastic mother.
Look at that, isn't that incredible?
Hello, Sophia, and Sophia would like to know if cormorants and ibises fight for food. So cormorants are very well adapted to the marine environment that they call home, and they have very, very long necks, long bills with the little hook, and generally cormorants hunt for their food along the sea floor. So they'll actually descend, get down to the sea floor, and then they'll start looking around rocks to find crayfish like we saw yesterday that the kelp gull had got. And I assume that the kelp gull had stolen that crayfish from a bank cormorant who loves to eat crayfish. Of course, the Cape cormorants, they feed a little bit differently. They head out offshore and they will predate on fish, whereas the ibises will feed on invertebrates and I was going to say invertebrates and other crustaceans, but that's the same thing, invertebrates. So they'll feed on invertebrates on the soil surface, or even very deep below the soil surface. So their feeding habits are very different, and they have different adaptations to suit their environments. The cormorants being very well adapted to the marine environment, and the ibises very well adapted to a terrestrial way of life. And you can imagine those ibises don't have to compete with too many other birds because of the length of their bill. I can't think of too many other birds that would be able to obtain food deep in the soil like an ibis can. So very lucky they have reduced competition when it comes to feeding with other species of birds. So I would say that cormorants and ibises probably like each other because they don't compete for any food sources, and they don't really compete for space either. I'd like to thank all the viewers for sending in such wonderful questions. The questions are always wonderful, but I've thoroughly enjoyed all of them that have come through today. Been very informative and conversational, so thank you very much. This waddle of penguins is currently not waddling, but look how cute that is. There is a penguin using another individual as a pillow.
All WildEarth explorers have a chance to join our naturalists in a monthly Fireside Chat. This is a great way to learn more about our guides, animal characters, and wildlife locations. We would love to hear from you as to the topics that interest you the most. Email us your ideas or tweet using the hashtag WildEarth, and we will be sure to take them into account when planning our evenings around the fire in the future. WildEarth explorers, it's in your nature.
Watch out for southern ground hornbills. If you see one, then a curse could befall you. Seeing a hyena could bring out the witches, and spotting a snake track could give you a rash. On Friday the 13th of May, WildEarth will be setting off on a special Unlucky Safari, where we search for things that bring bad luck. Are these just mythical superstitions, or could they be true? Join us to find out.
This is the courting pair that we were observing earlier in the show, and they look like they have settled down nicely, and they are staying very, very close to one another, and the other penguins are out of their bubble now. Hello, Theodore. That is a great question, Theodore. Theodore would like to know, how many times a year do African penguins mate? So generally, African penguins will only mate once a year. If they have a failed breeding attempt, a small percentage of them would try to mate again. It's about 30% of them. And sometimes it's more the exception than the rule. A pair of African penguins can have another brood as well within the same year. So general rule of thumb is that they will mate once a year, but there are records of individuals of pairs mating twice in a year. But the percentages are quite low. It would be around 20 to 30% of the population that will be double brooded. Another fantastic question. Thank you very much, Theodore, and it's been lovely interacting with you, and I hope that you've enjoyed the Penguin Beach show so far. Jason and myself are thoroughly enjoying ourselves down here, checking the rock pools out, trying to see what we can find. There's a penguin taking a bath. A very relaxed bath in a nice, calm rock pool. Just making sure that it is staying nice and clean and fresh. Looks like that individual on the left-hand side is looking for something on the ground. We have seen some lovely behavior with birds picking up pieces of sea bamboo. Hello, Chris. So penguins, they do form very long-lasting pair bonds, and penguins can mate for life. But it's best to say that penguins have protracted pair bonds, so they won't always mate for life. And there are two main reasons for a penguin. You can't really call it divorce if a partner passes away. But if a partner passes away, they will definitely look for a new mate. Another reason to look for a new mate would be continued failed breeding successes. So if a penguin couple fails to reproduce successfully, that can often result in a penguin divorce. But certainly if they lose a partner, they will definitely try and pair up and continue breeding in the future.
Look at that, there's a tiny leopard cub. Cormorant has given birth overnight. Look at the little guy, we just came around the corner. That is incredible, that's probably his first solo kill.
Oh, that is wonderful. Oh, and have a look, here comes Osana with the monitor lizard.
Osana, of course, at the same time decided to go climbing up the tree. He's just nearly fallen out of it again.
Look at that, he's running away. The buffalo is chasing Osana at the moment.
My heart rate has gone up slightly. In fact, it's gone up quite a lot. This elephant is now 2 meters from us. Okay, we might have to move here. No? Yes. Sorry, my friend, but you're about to push that onto the car. You see how cross he was that we didn't want to watch him push the tree over. That's why we moved.
A couple of days ago, I was hanging out in this very area with Flippy, and we tried to show all the viewers some otter scat, and I have found some more otter scat down here. They regularly defecate in the same area, and this creates a latrine. I must say I didn't do a very good job last time. I gave Flippy the runaround on the camera, so I'm going to try to stay as still as possible. And it's very easy to identify otter scat because otters eat organisms that have shells like crabs and crayfish. They also eat fish, of course, as well as frogs. But one way to identify that it is otter scat is that it is in the same area, and you can see the shell of crayfish in this case. When we were discussing it a couple of days ago, we picked out a piece from the scat that looked like the pectoral fin of a fish. But if you look more closely, this is actually the pleopod of the crayfish. So these pleopods are all on the ventral side of the tail, and the female uses them to hold their eggs in place. They can also be used for propulsion. So it's very, very interesting to note that the Cape Clawless otter in this region head out into the waters down here at Stony Point and use their unwebbed, so they don't have webbed fingers on their front hands. They use those unwebbed fingers to dig around in the rocks, regardless of if the water is murky or not, something that I never ever enjoyed while crayfishing. But of course, otters do this for a living. So very, very cool indeed to pick up the scat of one of the main carnivores in this region. I really hope that we get to see a Cape Clawless otter one day. It is certainly possible, although they do like to move around during times where there is low light conditions.
Tengana has been affectionately known as the Duke of Djuma for many years, but his path to the throne was not an easy one. Mvula was a legend from the south.
This is the cat that I'm pretty sure Tengana was sniffing around for. That is Mvula. How exciting is this?
Eventually, Mvula lost, but his young son Quarantine started to push through from the east. At the beginning of 2018, an intruder arrived. His name was Fukumuri.
That is normally stationary. So very, very handy to have that bobbing movement, because it does help with food procurement. Just every now and again hear the little of the Cape wagtails having a little scratch while foraging as well. Actually, one of my favorite bird calls down here in the Cape. The really sounds nice when you are walking down here on the beach. A sound that I've become quite accustomed to living in the Western Cape and beach walking, or strandloping as it's known in Afrikaans down here in South Africa. This Cape wagtail has started to engage in preening behavior after capturing a number of tasty morsels. You often find that birds directly after foraging bouts will start to preen themselves. Evelyn, and thank you so much for asking about the dead kelp that accumulates down here on the shore. So Evelyn would like to know if any of the organisms use the kelp for shelter. So there definitely are a number of invertebrates, such as the giant pillbug, the sand fleas, that will use the kelp for shelter. Even the kelp flies will use it. If we're looking at larger organisms, birds such as the bank cormorant actually exclusively utilize the sea bamboo to use as nesting material, and they utilize a lot of it, very, very large amounts of it. Their nests can weigh up to about 3 to 6 kilograms. Oyster catchers, on the other hand, don't necessarily use the kelp for shelter, but they use it more for concealment. So they will scrape the soil away around kelp that is stranded on the beach and lay their eggs in that region, and that affords the nest protection as well as the chicks. And just looking at that picture, you can imagine trying to pick up the brown speckled eggs of an African black oyster catcher. They will be very concealed amongst that kelp. That coloration will definitely help. So I would say that mainly invertebrates would use it for shelter, but other organisms use it for benefits of nesting. That's a very, very interesting question. If you look at penguins, penguins often will lie down on kelp and use the kelp to shelter themselves from the wind sometimes. So I have seen penguins also lie where kelp is accumulated and lie on the other side of it, and essentially that protects the penguins from icy winds that could be blowing, maybe even rain if it's coming from that specific direction. So very, very handy, not only as a food source, but also provides structures and hiding places for certain species down here. Can also, of course, a lot of obstruction, and I've seen penguins look quite annoyed with kelp that has accumulated, especially when they have spent a couple of days out offshore foraging. And now, after spending all that time offshore, they have to climb a mound of kelp to exit the water. Very funny to watch them when the kelp is fresh, when it is still very slippery and the mucilage glands are still producing that mucus-like substance that causes them to slip and slide all over the show. Can see how that kelp can create a wall-like structure for the African penguins. Wow, it has been such a fantastic time down here at the left wing. It really has been great, and once again I would love to thank all the viewers for sending in their comments and questions. It is really awesome to interact with everyone. So from myself and Jason down here at Penguin Beach, we would love to say thank you to everyone. Of course, the Sunset Safari is about to begin, and I know that the team up at Djuma are going to be looking for some very, very special spotted cats, and Chris in Pridelands is going to try follow up on some of the African buffalo. So everyone stay tuned. It's going to be an action-packed sunset drive from us down here at Penguin Beach. Cheers everyone, and we'll see you same time, same place tomorrow.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.